Thank you very much, Shannon, for your introduction. It is a great pleasure and a deep personal satisfaction to be here today with so many all-time colleagues and friends, sharing with you the knowledge and the experience we have been gathering over the last 35 years in water reclamation and reuse from the worldwide, the European, and the Spanish perspective. I want to thank the International Desalination Association and the Spanish Association for Water Desalination and Reuse for their kind invitation to address this distinguished audience during the opening ceremonies of the IDA International Water Reuse and Recycling Conference in Valencia, devoted to the theme, Making Every Drop Count. My appreciation goes in very particular to Miguel Ángel Sanz, President of IDA, Domingo Zarzo, President of IDIR, Shannon McCarthy, Secretary General of IDA, and the chairs and members of the technical committees for organizing such an exciting conference in a subject of such great and current worldwide interest. In particular, I want to highlight the inclusion of two promising debates, one on water reuse regulations, another on pricing water security and enhancing practical financing tools for reclaimed water reuse. Let me say from the beginning and highlight the excellent program you have prepared that illustrates in the most effective way the important role that technology and technological applications have had and will have in the advancement of water reuse for the most diverse uses. The program is also an emblematic illustration of the spectacular availability of knowledge and experience on water reuse in a globalized world, which can be accessed by fast internet communication and through the most diverse specialized journals, reports, and publications. Let me emphasize that technology has an essential role in the implementation and success of water reuse, all the way from non-potable uses to potable uses. However, although technology has been essential, almost irreplaceable in reaching those goals, has not been sufficient for assuring public acceptance of reclaimed water on a universal basis. As our colleagues from Orange County simply stated years ago, technical excellence is no guarantee of success. The evidence from our water reuse experience over the last 3 decades indicates that technical achievements have to be complemented with public acceptance, which have to show the willingness, the support, and even the enthusiasm of final users to use reclaimed water once they are convinced that it is protective for public health and instrumental for environmental preservation. One of the basic elements for achieving public acceptance is the development of adequate regulations, has already been mentioned here before. Beyond the epidemiological, scientific, and technical basis of the proposed regulations, the successful acceptance of those regulations strongly depend on the collaborative, effective, and transparent features of the institutional framework adopted for developing those regulations, with active participation of all involved, ranging from regulatory agencies to all kinds of stakeholders. One of the historical highlights of water reuse in Spain dates back from 1985, when we organized the first symposium on water reclamation and reuse with colleagues from California and Israel. We naively thought at that time that mastering the technical aspects of water reclamation would allow us to persuade our water-needed users to accept reclaimed water as their new water source. More than three decades have passed, and we have not quite reached that goal. In 1986, we joined other international members of the former International Association on Water Pollution Research and Control, now called IWA, in order to form a new group, specialist group on water reuse. The Association Management Committee approved the new group in 1987. We had our first regular meeting in 1988 at the Brighton Conference. And in 1991, we organized the first international, at that time, symposium on water reuse in Costa Brava, Girona, and again, the 8th International Conference on Water Reuse in Barcelona. Those two events are a part of a long series of very successful conferences that held the last session in Long Beach in July 2017, and will reconvene in Berlin in 2019. Spain shares the Mediterranean climate characteristics with California, Southwest Australia, and South Africa. Over the last 3 decades, we have developed considerable number of water reuse projects for most beneficial uses: agriculture and landscape irrigation, environmental uses, river flow augmentation, urban uses, industrial uses, supply to seawater intrusion barriers, and recharge of potable aquifers. In 2007, after more than 20 years of intensive debates, Spain passed a set of regulations for reclaimed water based on treatment performance objectives and inspired by California regulation or criteria and WHO recommendations. Those regulations have been widely applied and have been also strongly debated for the most diverse reasons. Some consider them very restrictive. Others claim that they need a new risk management basis. However, Spanish professionals, government officials, and stakeholders at large still have to devote a large effort to document our achievements and performance on water reclamation and reuse. In 2014, the European Commission promoted an assessment of water reuse within the European Union, and they concluded that Spain was the member state with the largest production of reclaimed water at about 550 cubic hectometers per year, and that under business as usual, BAU means business as usual conditions, Spain was the member state where water reuse could increase significantly during the coming years, would be member state number 1. Additional awareness raising and information measures could significantly increase that flow, according to estimation of this Deloitte study, at about 1,200 cubic hectometers per year. The report also recognized the crucial role that our 2007 regulation have had in promoting and improving water resource reuse practices. Our national and European experience clearly underlines some important issues affecting the regulatory process. The European Commission has just been launched a regulatory approval process for water reuse under the designation of minimum quality requirements for water reuse, basically applicable to agriculture irrigation. I imagine you agree with me that most European member states, regions, and cities, and particularly those with the Mediterranean climate, host excellent ex-scientists and engineers, good experimental and research facilities, considerable knowledge and experience, numerous excellent water reuse projects, and certainly a good number of satisfied users. However, we have had serious difficulties in crystallizing all those elements into effective practical regulations and water policies. There is a clear need for developing what I call added value solutions for water reclamation and reuse beyond the basic scientific and technical experience. To reach that goal, we certainly need a more favorable, collaborative institutional framework that allows us to bring the water reuse regulatory process to its full potential. It has taken quite a bit of time to produce that European Union regulation proposal, in spite of the considerable knowledge and experience available at these three institutions, the European Food Safety Authority, the Scientific Committee on Health, Environment, and Emerging Risks, and the staff and the national and international advisors of the European Commission Joint Research Center. In spite of all those efforts, the current proposal is still very limited, just devoted to agriculture irrigation, and is still pending from a wide debate. On the other hand, it is worthwhile to notice the regulatory institutional framework adopted in California since 1985 at the time of the Monterey Project. One of the best controlled and documented studies on the benefits of water reuse for agricultural irrigation, considering at the time the quality implications prevailing at the time for crops, soils, and groundwater. Beyond the well-known scientific and technical aspects of the project, the success of the initiative was mainly associated to a regulatory framework favoring collaborative relationship between water resources and public health agencies, with the scientific support of the University of California. An extensive effort was also made to assess public perception and acceptance from all stakeholders in relation to the 1978 Title 22 regulation that was changed. 25 years later, in 2012, an independent advisory panel reviewed those treatment-based criteria using available epidemiological evidence, quantitative microbial risk assessment, and acceptance from local Monterey farmers, Salinas Valley, to conclude that modifying those standards could not measurably improve public health. The consideration of an advisory panel became one of the essential elements of the successful advancement of the regulatory process, in combination with a favorable collaborative framework between project proponents, demonstration facilities, proactive programs for public information and outreach, public health authorities, and water resources agencies. Since then, advisory panels have become an efficient element for the development of successful water reuse regulations in California and many other states. The following are some of the most emblematic results from that regulatory process, particularly in the state of California. June 2014, the regulation for groundwater replenishment was approved. December 2016, the report was presented to the legislature on the feasibility of using recycled water. Californians like to use recycle. The rest of the states use reclaim for drinking water. March 2018, new regulations were approved for surface water augmentation. April 2018, a proposal was published for regulating direct potable reuse. Just about a few weeks ago, in April 2018, a report was published on recommendation for monitoring strategies for CECs. In summary, the approval of those specialized regulations in such a short time interval illustrate the benefits of adopting such a regulatory framework. And it also highlights its potential for helping many of us in other countries, in other latitudes, and particularly in the Mediterranean region, for advancing and developing water reuse regulations. Let me go back now to the industrial sector. The industrial sector certainly deserves a particular attention, particularly when adopting internal recycling strategies where sanitary effluents can be effectively segregated. Numerous cases are included in the program of this conference. They all illustrate the ability of the industrial sector for adopting the most advanced water reclamation processes as an effective way to improve water reliability and to exercise social responsibility by emphasizing self-sufficiency of water resources. It is highly desirable that those industrial initiatives do their best in adopting leadership roles and transparency strategies as to share the water quality achieved by their processes. In doing so, they will contribute to document the ability and reliability of the reclamation processes as to advance public acceptance under the assumption that the water produced for industrial use could eventually be used for non-potable and even potable uses. They could play the role of expert panels, complementing advisory panels in proposing and promoting water reuse regulations for uses beyond those especially adopted by the industrial sector. I think it's necessary that water resources agencies, and particularly public health agencies, be convinced of the great benefits that a favorable and pragmatic collaborative institutional framework can bring to water reuse project proponents under the effective guidance of specific advisory panels. In summary, the availability of excellent technical solutions for producing reclaimed, purified, new water is an essential prerequisite for the advancement of water reuse in most applications, particularly when reclaimed water use approaches the potable reuse category. The support from ultimate users, water users, is critical for the success of water reuse initiatives. Public information, perception, and acceptance are key elements of any water policy initiative directed to promote the use of reclaimed water, ranging from agricultural irrigation to industrial use to potable reuse. The development of appropriate regulations for the different uses is an essential component of the public acceptance process. And also, let me say that we have considerable experience on protocols used in different countries, different states, for developing those regulations. As I mentioned before, a favorable collaborative institutional framework involving water resources and public health agencies, scientific and technical expertise, project proponents, and final users have proved to be very beneficial for a timely and effective advancement of the regulatory process. In particular, the inclusion of advisory panels and expert panels have become a very effective way to reconcile potential discrepancies and different visions while reaching consensus among all stakeholders involved. So let me say, let's work together, remembering that public acceptance has a rather local character. Looks like users want to verify the validity of the regulation on their own courtyard. On the other side, we have to recognize water reuse in our latitudes is inevitable. As far as the industrial sector, allow me to make a few recommendations. The industrial sector offers one of the most promising setups for water reuse and in-house water recycling. The follow-up of those advanced projects offers a very valuable experimental evidence of the applicability of those technical processes adopted and the potential of those processes for application in other non-industrial contexts, like those associated to potable water reuse. Technology providers and technical service providers can play an important role in the advancement of water reuse by stimulating and assisting their customers in offering documented evidence of the ability of the reclamation process to produce reclaimed water of high quality in the form of a new, reliable water supply and at an acceptable production cost. Two final remarks to this distinguished audience, one devoted to terminology, this water market terminology, and another one on international system of units. The first one has to do with this term that is very frequently used in the literature and even in the political agenda that, in my opinion, creates a very unfavorable public perception. Why is the reason for that? Because water in most European Union member states is a public resource in its totality. We don't differentiate between surface and groundwater. Everything is a public resource with zero cost. So public doesn't understand buying and selling water, which cannot be done without the permission of the water authority. So, and furthermore, this term water market kind of amplifies the current debate that you probably are aware about returning water supply and sanitation to the public sector. So, if I may suggest to you, add the term services, water services. This is what the real market is in the water services. The second comment has to do with the use of international uses when you are publishing outside of your country. I fully respect any unit you want to use in your own country, but when you are publishing in the international arena, please use as much as you can the international units. Two examples that illustrate that, taken from the literature. There are many, many, many others. The one on this press release from the European Union using billions of cubic meters, the comma instead of the dot, and also the WHO publication using gigaliters, billions of liters. Why I say that? Because we have to pay due attention and consideration to former scientists and engineers that in the early 1800s already were concerned about the accuracy, precision, and mainly comparability of their measurements. That was the reason why they founded the Bureau International des Poids et Mesures, BIPM, in 1875, a treaty that includes 59 nations as of March 2018. The reason for that bureau? To promote and advance the global comparability of measurements. So my suggestion in this respect, please visit the BIPM webpage and become familiar with the cubic meter and the prefixes. I know that cubic hectometer is a real hard thing for many of you, but gigaliters and things like that are very complex and absolutely inadequate. Even more, probably the worst of all of those words is billion. You have to be aware that there are two sorts of billions. The short one, which is used in the US, and the long one, which is preferred in Europe and non-English speaking countries. You know the difference between the short and the long? 1,000 times. So when you make a translation and you say billions, you have to be very careful about what you are talking about, particularly if instead of water are dollars or euros. Having said that, I want to conclude my presentation by thanking all of you for your attention. Thank you.